Want to learn how to create an amazing album? Well, we're going to be going over this crucial process for songwriters and even more throughout this video. So stick around to find out. Hello. My name is Dylan Pines with Musician on a Mission, and I am here today with a rant. I'm going to be ranting about something that really bothers me. And I'm also going to be telling you one of the biggest secrets I have as a producer to helping my artists create amazing albums. But before we get started, I want to let you know we are giving away a free gift for today. We're giving away our entire collection of cheat sheets. All of the stuff that we've been designing over the last few years and giving away in different videos, we are giving them away to you for free. Stuff on EQ and compression and vocals and volume balancing and reverb and everything in between. So if this is something that you'd be interested in, it is totally free. Just click the link on screen or down in the description below and get your own free access. I really think it's going to help you out. So with that said, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. I want to talk about one of the things that is the most frustrating to me whenever I see them come from successful artists. And that is massive albums. Huge, overblown, overstacked albums. Albums with like 15 through like 20 different songs, right? And you're listening through this album. You know, there might be a few fantastic songs on there and a few pretty good songs, a few songs you're really feeling. And then there's almost inevitably a few songs where you're just like, man, this is really not very good. It breaks up the flow of the album. It breaks up the emotion of the album. And you feel the need to run over to the record player and hit skip and move to the next song or the next song. And you end up really with an album where your fans like about half of the songs on the album and the other half, could maybe do without. And man, if you have such a long album, there's so much room for you to cut songs. Why would you have every one of them on that release? So for me, as a producer, I'm focused on helping my artists put out an album without a bad song on it. Something that is great from the start to the finish. Something that's going to stand the test of time. And you can see this. So many of the albums that are revered from our past, those albums don't have a bad song on them. Or maybe they've got one, maybe two, but 95% of the album is tight. So with my rant over, let's talk about the big secret to creating a great album. And here it is. Write 30, record 20, mix 15, and release 10. I'll say it again. Write 30, record 20, mix 15, and release 10. So in case you can't tell, I'm talking about songs. In order to release an incredible album, you need to write a lot of songs, record a good portion of those songs, mix a smaller portion of your recorded songs, and finally release the best that you have, the cream of the crop. Now, this idea, which is a very common thing done by successful artists, this is based on two different principles. The first principle is this. If you just record and release the songs you have absolutely no room for error. If you only have 10 songs and you only record 10 songs and you only mix 10 songs and you only release those 10 songs, you have absolutely no room to have written a bad song, right? Because you only wrote 10. So if one of them happens to be bad, is what it is. You have to release it. Not so with the Write 30 concept. The second principle is this, and I want to phrase it in a way that was put by my good friend, Zach Wyatt. I'm giving him a shout out. And it was this: shitty writing is the fertilizer for good writing. Songwriting is a muscle. And in order to build up your muscles, you have to work them out. And it's the exact same thing for songwriting. If you write as much as you can and you are okay with writing bad songs, the odds of you writing an amazing song go up exponentially. So let's think of it this way. Let's say over the course of the next year, you write as many songs as you can. 30, we'll say. 40% of those songs are probably going to be trash, right? 30% of those songs are probably going to be just fine. 20% of those songs, though, are probably going to be great. And 10% of those songs might be the best you've ever written, something that would really resonate with everyone who hears it. Now, on the flip side, imagine that you just wrote 10 songs. That ratio is probably going to be the same no matter what. So you're still going to have 40% of those songs being bad, 30% being fine, 20% being pretty good, and 10% being amazing. But because you only wrote 10 songs, you're going to have bad songs on your album. It's almost an inevitability. You can't expect every song you write to be the best you've ever written. Whenever you write with that kind of philosophy, it almost always produces subpar albums. So when you combine these two principles, that shitty writing is the fertilizer for good writing, and that only recording the songs you have leaves no room for error, that naturally bleeds into this truth that we've been talking about. If you write a ton of songs and you record a smaller portion of those songs and you mix an even smaller portion of those songs and you only release the best of every single one of those steps, then you're going to have an amazing album. The odds of that happening go up exponentially. So how exactly does the process of figuring out what to take to the studio work? Now, you could do it however you want, but this is what I would recommend. Take your 30 songs, and again, the number is kind of irrelevant, however many songs you've written. Take those songs and gather a room of some of your friends. Then play those songs to your friends. Then let each friend and yourself give a rank to each song. So just 1 out of 10. And then maybe let them give a reason for why they gave the ranking if you want to do that. But what's going to happen is when you average all those numbers together, you are going to come up with a clear list of what your best songs are and what your worst songs are. And I'll actually do this in an Excel doc. Just record everything, figure out the average, you're done. It was an afternoon. So at that point, just take the best 15 or 20 songs and say, okay, that is what I'm going to take to the studio. That is what I'm going to record. And you're going to repeat this process every step of the way. After you have finished recording in the studio, next thing you do, you take those songs, you gather your friends, you play those songs to your friends, and you re-rank them. You see how they sound now that the studio version is done. Once you've got all of your average rankings, take the best 12 to 15 of those and send those off for mixing. Then when the mixes are done, you're going to do it one more time, gather those friends in a room, listen, re-rank, and release the 10 best songs that work together. This process allows you to work through your songs until you get to the absolute cream of the crop, the best possible songs, the best possible recordings, the best possible mixes that you can get at this point in your artist's career. And with the songs that you don't use, the great news is that you don't have to get rid of them. You could trash them, or you could scrap them for parts. Maybe there's a verse that is amazing, but the chorus just isn't really doing it. So you could just save that for another time, for another song. Or maybe the song is amazing, but it just doesn't really fit the vibe of the album that you've created. Maybe you're doing this pop album and you've got one song that's a little bit more on like the reggae side, and it just sort of breaks up the flow of the album. If it's a great song, save it for your next release. It might be more in line with that album instead. And again, this is the process that successful artists make. Why do you think so many great artists have so many B-sides? It's because they take the time to write tons of songs, record tons of songs, and then decide which of these are the cream of the crop, which of these deserve to be heard by people on this release, and which of these maybe need to be worked on more in the future. Now, again, I want to point this out. The numbers don't matter, right? 30 is just a catchy process, and the ratios are pretty good. But really the idea is just write as much as you can and make sure you are paring down what you take to the next stage based on the best that you've got. So if you wanted to do a smaller version of this, maybe because you just don't have enough time or money, maybe do something like write 20, record 14, mix 12, and release 9. That's still going to get you the right amount of paring down until you have the best that you can possibly put out at this time in your life. So to give you a quick case study this, I want to talk about my favorite album of all time, which is Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. It is a work of absolute genius. I would recommend you go and listen to it 6 times because that's how many times it takes to really get a feel for what Kendrick is trying to talk about. But one of the reasons that it is so good and why there's not a bad song on that album is because before that album got made, Kendrick scrapped 2 or 3 albums worth of material to just choose those songs. And in fact, about a year later, Kendrick released the B-sides for that album. And all the B-sides are amazing too. His untitled, unmastered album, which is just the B-sides from the sessions that made To Pimp a Butterfly, is considered a classic in its own right. And it's literally just songs that didn't make it onto the last album. Now, I don't want you to compare yourself to Kendrick because, in my opinion, he's a genius. But the big reason that this was so successful is because he overwrote. He flexed and worked out those writer muscles constantly. And so he was able to pare down and pare down and pare down until he had the absolute best he possibly could release, and then released that. So that about wraps up my rant. Hopefully you'll be able to take that advice into your coming years as a songwriter, as an artist, and be able to make albums that will truly stand the test of time. But before you go, don't forget, we are giving away our entire collection of cheat sheets, stuff on all different topics, stuff on EQ and compression and vocals and reverb and everything in between. So if you're trying to create a better mix, maybe for your own album, then definitely go ahead and grab this collection. It's totally free, and I really think you'll like it. And of course, if you're new here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We make tips and tutorials just like this one every single week on this channel, and we would honestly love to help you grow in any way we can. That's going to be about it for me. This has been Dylan Pines with Musician on a Mission. And remember, create regardless.